طيب بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. So welcome to the Networks 2 class. So the class for Network 2 focuses mainly on the first three layers from the bottom up. So we focus mainly on physical layer, data link layer, and routing over the IP layer. So this is the catalog description. And it builds on Networks 1. And the first thing we will talk about covering the material is a small refresher about Network 1, just to remind you of all the basic concepts in Network 1. So the objectives here are slightly different from Network 1. So in terms of objectives or learning outcomes, so we need to discuss the basic principles of signal, digital, and analog communication. So this is part of the physical layer. And you will see this part significantly different from what you have learned in Network 1. Number 2, identify concepts and techniques that involve data link and medium access control. And this related to the data link layer. Including framing, flow control, error control, and so on. And also this part is significantly different. Number 3, identify the detailed characteristics of common dynamic routing protocols. So we discussed routing as a concept, but this part focuses on dynamic routing protocols. We discussed before the difference between static routing and dynamic routing. For dynamic routing, we have some common routing protocols like RIP or EIGRP and OSPF, and these protocols are going to be covered in details later on in the second half of the course. Actually, this is almost like 40% of the course. The other two objectives are tailored towards learning some tools and working in groups towards achieving some goal, and these are we're not part of Network 1 mainly, at least the theory part. So you need to develop network programs using socket interface or learning some simulation tools. So for that, you will have two tutorials. One tutorial is going to be focused on socket programming, how to build socket programming. Of course, you have some idea from operating systems, but you will need to learn that and use it as part of the project. And the project is gonna be part of this learning outcome, where you need to work in a group of students on an assignment relevant to the course. So in that we will give you some project description that you need to work on and develop like a proposal, and the project is gonna go through 3 phases as we will discuss in a minute. So that's regarding the learning outcomes. So these are the topics. So these are the different topics that we will discuss. Of course, the textbook is Frozan, the Frozan textbook, the 5th edition. But a significant part of the course is going to be using the CCNA2, especially the dynamic routing protocols. Dynamic routing protocols align with CCNA2. However, all the other parts are directly from the Frozan book. So this introduction to Internet Protocol Suite, we will cover it next, and this is going to give you like a refresher about the Network 1. And the basic concepts in that course. Then this part, the data up to here, this is the physical layer. So data and signals, digital transmission, analog transmission. So these are part of the physical layer. And then the data link layer is going to be covered in these 2 parts, data link layer and medium access control. and then the routing is going to be covered in the dynamic routing protocols. Other than that, of course, you will have to deliver a group presentation for the project, as well as a report, which again we will talk about in a minute. All right, so this is the most important part. So the assessment criteria in this course is going to be as follows. So first, we will have 4 quizzes. Okay. These quizzes will cover the different parts of the course. So each quiz is going to cover around 2 chapters in the book. I have to iterate and reiterate that we will take the best 3 out of 4 quizzes. Okay? In which case, none of the quizzes is going to be repeated again. If you miss a quiz, that's counted as part of these 4 quizzes. If you miss one, then that's it. So the other 3 are going to be counted. Okay? Quizzes are not going to be repeated. Okay? In general, if you have taken any courses with me before, you know that the strongest thing I hate is to repeat any exam. Okay? I hate repeating any exams. Because I do develop new exams every time. If there is any expectation that the exams are going to be repeated, the exams are not repeated. Every time the exam is going to be different. And that's why I hate it, because I spend a lot of time preparing these exams. So I need you to take these exams seriously. Okay? So if you wanna have excuses, I mean, be careful that these excuses have to be really strong excuses not to attend the exam. And that's maybe valid only for the midterm, but quizzes are not going to be repeated no matter what. Okay? This is clear and this is recorded. We have 2 homeworks, which again will cover different parts of the course. So the homeworks are going to be either directly from the Frozen book or from the CCNA2 material. The midterm is going to be by the end of the 7th week. The exact date we have to agree on. So the exact date is not predefined here. We have to agree on. And it's going to be 20%. Sorry, I skipped the project. The project is 20%. Okay? And this project is development based. So you need to develop something. It's not a review of a paper. You need to have some coding. You need to develop some code. Okay? And that can have one of 2 forms. Either simulation or real implementation. So real implementation, I expect you to use socket programming towards building a client-server application and a network of some topology, and then study certain application. For example, video streaming, or sending images over wireless network or wired network or something like that. And you need to build it. You need to build a client and a server. You need to build different machines. Okay, so some groups, they say, okay, so I have the programs running on one machine. That's not a network. Okay, so you need to really study real performance of networks, either wireless networks or wired networks or 3G, 4G, whatever. So that's real implementation. And the simulation, you can use any simulator. One of the common simulators is NS2. However, you are free to use any other simulator that you might be familiar with. So for simulation, of course, is just to build a virtual environment, okay, inside that tool, which is composed of different nodes that are connected together using certain topology. But it's virtual, it's not like real. And this allows you in many cases to have a complicated performance evaluation, like you can have 100 nodes inside that simulator that send back and forth some packets of some form, and then you can test the performance of the network overall. Of course, that's not feasible in reality to build such a big system, and that's why we resort to simulation. Okay? So, as I said before, you will have 2 tutorials delivered by the TA. I delivered these tutorials, I developed these tutorials, and it's going to be delivered by the TA on 2 different days that we will announce. One is focused on socket programming, which helps this part, and another one will focus on NS2 simulation. Okay, so this is supposed to get you up to speed to familiarize yourself with these 2 branches for working on your project. The project is gonna have 3 phases. So we figure that it's not just that you work on a project freely and then at the end you deliver a presentation, and then all of a sudden we discover that what you have worked on is either irrelevant to the course, or sometimes you have worked on something that's really not of a significant objective, that does not really serve the learning outcomes of the course. So therefore, we have, not just me, many of my colleagues, they do the same. So they divide the project into phases. And I figure 3 phases are enough. So in the first phase, you will be asked to develop a proposal about what you plan to work on. In the proposal, you need to describe briefly, as an abstract, what you need to work on and what your objectives are. So my objective is to study, is to get familiar with simulation in general, and to build a network topology that addresses some real-life problem, or to study video streaming, or something like that. So high-level objectives. And then what you plan to deliver at the end of this project. Of course, the report is one deliverable, but also, do you plan to deliver a real implementation? Do you plan to deliver a simulation environment of some sort? What are the description of the results that you expect, and so on. So that's the proposal. Based on this proposal, I will give you a feedback, and the feedback could simply be, go ahead. Your proposal looks fine, go ahead. Or maybe the feedback would be, your proposal is not enough. It's actually trivial, and you need to study some other things for this proposal to be accepted. Okay? Or maybe the feedback would be, what you are planning to do is just too much. You want to build a spaceship, and this is not feasible. Okay? So you need to strip down the objective a little bit. So you need to you scale it down. So something like that. So based on this back and forth, we agree and we seal that proposal. So you start working. Once you start working, I expect you to start working, of course, and then towards the 7th week, again maybe after the midterm, we will ask you again to submit the phase 2. And phase 2 is going to have everything except for the final results of the implementation. So you need to describe the detailed design of your project. So you need to have a system model, the architecture of the project that you are working on, what is the specs of all the nodes that are part of this network, what are the types of networks that you plan to work on, what is the protocols that you are going to use, and so on and so forth. So the detailed design is going to be part of this. And I have to be clear here, all the assignment submissions are going to be checked against similarity. Okay, so similarity is going to be checked for all the project submissions and assignment submissions, homeworks, and code similarity as well.
Phase 2 need to be submitted by the end of the 7th week?
The phase 2, yes. The exact deadline is going to be communicated as part of the project description. So I have a project description which will give you some idea about all the 3 phases. However, the exact deadline I have to announce it later. And then, of course, in phase 3, prior to delivering the phase 3, you are going to deliver the presentation. So again, we will announce the group presentation day, where each group will deliver a presentation about the work. That includes everything. Okay? After the presentation, maybe 2 or 3 days after the presentation, you will have to submit the project report, the codes, and everything. And the reason for giving you a chance to 2 or 3 days is just to incorporate any last feedback from the presentation into the report. So sometimes I tell you, like the results that you have, maybe not enough. So you need to probably add more results related to specific scenario or something like this. And then after that, we give you 2 or 3 days to submit the report. Okay, any questions so far? All right.
Phase 1 is basically the proposal. Phase 2 is start working on the project.
The detailed design, yes.
Okay, detailed design. What does it include, the detailed design?
Everything is going to be described in the project description. The detailed design, you are supposed to have the architecture, the system model, the detailed description about each node. So anything other than the results, the actual results, are going to be part of that phase 2.
So then what's the difference between phase 2 and phase 3?
Results.
Yes?
That's it, yes.
So the hugest part of the whole project is phase 2.
Yes, but the implementation is very significant. The implementation part is very significant. You won't have any results without the implementation, right? So between phase 2 and phase 3, you will have to perfect your implementation and get some results out of it. And that requires some hands-on work, very intensive hands-on work. Many groups, I have to warn you that many groups, they start to work on the implementation after phase 2, and that's really a big mistake. Big mistake. Your detailed design is gonna be really rigorous and of good quality only if you start building your implementation. Okay? Once you start your hands-on work on the project, you will get many ideas that you can incorporate in the detailed design. And that's what happened in real life. Okay? Almost never, especially in your stage now, when you put the detailed design on the paper, there's almost 0% possibility that you will not update this detailed design after you start the implementation. Even the experts in development, they do that. Okay? So, so once you start on the implementation, you will have to go back to the detailed design, update something, and then go back to the implementation and so on. So this iterations of back and forth will make your phase 2 and phase 3 really of good quality. Okay? The final exam, of course, is scheduled by the university, so you all know that. Any questions?
How many students per group?
Yes, well, usually I have, usually we have around 6 projects overall in each class. And I find that 5 or 6 projects are good number, so that I expect all the groups to have constant interaction with me during the project work. So So that's why if we have one project per student, it's almost impossible to have enough interaction with every single student on a different project. Because these projects are different, so you are free to select whatever topic you want. And I'm not gonna leave you to select anything that you don't know about. So I will give you some hints and some topics that you can read about on the internet, and then try to find out what really the topics that appeal to you, and then you start developing your proposal based on that. So I think if your group is 25 students, then I think 4 students per group is kind of, reasonable. Okay, so 3 or 4. Okay. All right. So I think other than that, everything else is just standard stuff. So any questions? Okay.